Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving headfirst into something that might feel all too real if you're over 65. Why stress after 65 hits harder. 4 ways to fight back. Yep, you heard me right. Stress isn't just that pesky little buzz you used to shrug off in your younger days. After 65, it's like a freight train that doesn't just roll through. It parks itself on your chest and refuses to budge. If you've noticed that a late bill, a canceled plan, or even a rainy day can throw you off way more than it used to, you're not alone, and you're not imagining it. But here's the silver lining. You don't have to just sit there and take it. Stress might hit harder now, but you can hit back smarter. And I'm going to show you how, with 4 practical, down-to-earth ways that don't need a fancy degree or a stack of cash. Just a little know-how and some grit. We're going to unpack why stress feels like it's got a vendetta against you after 65, and then roll out some real, actionable moves to shove it back where it belongs. This isn't about plastering a fake smile over life's messes. It's about finding your footing so you can feel steady, strong, and maybe even a little lighter, no matter what's coming down the pike. Before we get into it, if you're new here, smash that subscribe button and tap the bell. We're dropping straight talk insights on aging, health, and living your best life every single week. And if this video vibes with you, toss a 1 in the comments. If it's not clicking, drop a 0. I'm all about tweaking these to fit what you need. Alright, let's roll up our sleeves and dig in. Picture this. You're 67. Kick back at the kitchen table with your morning coffee, maybe flipping through the paper or scrolling your phone. Everything's fine, until it's not. The phone rings and it's your daughter saying she can't make it over this weekend like you'd planned. Or maybe you open a bill that's twice what you expected because of some fine print you missed. Back when you were 45, you'd brush it off, maybe grumble a bit, crack a dry joke, and get on with your day. But now, that little snag doesn't just ripple. It crashes. It's like your brain grabs it, spins it into a tornado, and suddenly you're tense, your stomach's in knots, and you're replaying it all day like a bad rerun. Sound familiar? That's exactly what Diane, a 68-year-old I heard about recently, has been dealing with. Diane was always the rock, raised 3 kids solo, ran a little bakery for years, handled curveballs like she was born for it. But these days, she's noticed stress doesn't just knock, it kicks the door down. Take last month. She had a minor fender bender in a grocery store parking lot. Nobody hurt, just a scratched bumper. Back in the day, she'd have laughed it off and driven home. This time, it wrecked her. She told me, I couldn't let it go. My heart was pounding, I barely slept, and I felt like I aged 20 years in a week. She's not losing it, and neither are you if this rings a bell. Stress after 65 isn't just louder, it's heavier, stickier, and way more stubborn. There's a reason for that, tied to how your body and brain shift as the years stack up. But here's the good news. It's not a life sentence. Diane's finding her way back, and by the time we're done here, you'll have 4 solid moves to do the same. We'll break down why stress is such a beast now and then hand you the tools to tame it. Simple stuff you can start today. Ready? Let's walk through this together. So why does stress feel like it's cranking the dial to 11 after 65? It's not just you being dramatic, your whole system's playing a different game now. Back in your 30s or 40s, stress was like a summer squall, loud, chaotic, but over quick. Your body was a pro at handling it. Cortisol, that stress hormone, would spike to get you through, then drop like a stone once the storm passed. You'd feel the jolt, deal with it, and bounce back by lunch. But after 65, that bounce back's not so bouncy anymore. Your stress response gets sluggish, like a house guest who overstays and eats all your snacks. Science has the receipts. A study from the National Institute on Aging says that as we age, cortisol doesn't clear out as fast after something stressful hits. It hangs around, loitering in your system, stirring up trouble. For Diane, that fender bender wasn't just a 10-minute hassle. Her body kept pumping cortisol for days, leaving her shaky, wired, and worn out. That's your adrenal glands. The little stress factories, working overtime when they're not as nimble as they once were. And here's the tough pill. That lingering cortisol doesn't just bug you, it messes with the works. It can jack up your blood pressure, throw your sleep off a cliff, even make your joints ache like you've been hauling bricks. At 65, when your body's already wrestling with slower reflexes or a creakier frame, stress doesn't just tap you on the shoulder, it lands a haymaker. But it's not just your body. The brain's in the ring too, and it's taking some hard knocks. After 65, your headspace shifts. You've got a lifetime of smarts, no question, but the wiring that handles stress tweaks a bit. The amygdala, that emotional fire alarm in your brain, gets jumpier, lighting up at the smallest spark, while the prefrontal cortex, the rational boss that's supposed to hit the brakes, starts lagging behind. A study from UCLA found that older adults feel stress more intensely because that calming system isn't as quick to kick in. So when Diane's bumper got scraped, her amygdala went full siren mode. Danger, panic, while her prefrontal cortex was still fumbling for the keys to shut it down. Now, layer on life's big hits. Retirement shaking your routine, friends passing on, health worries popping up, and stress isn't just a blip. It's a whole mood. It's why a grandkid bailing on a visit can feel like a gut punch, or a doctor's appointment sits on your chest like a brick for weeks. Your brain's not broken, it's seasoned, carrying more scars and stories, and that makes every stressor feel like it's got extra weight. That's why after 65, stress doesn't just hit, it sticks around, digs in, and hits way harder than it ever did before. Let's get into what that does to you. Because it's not just a bad vibe, it's a full-on ambush if you let it run the show. Chronic stress after 65 turns up the heat on inflammation. Think of it like rust creeping through your pipes. That rust doesn't just chill, it clogs everything, hiking your risk for heart issues, diabetes, even making your arthritis scream louder. A Harvard study pinned chronic stress as a top trigger for heart attacks in older adults. Your ticker's already pulling double shifts, and stress is like tossing gravel in the engine. Sleep gets hammered too. Cortisol keeps you buzzing when you should be snoozing, so you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., replaying that fender bender or worrying about tomorrow's weather. Diane said she'd lie there, heart thumping, mind racing, like she was still dodging cars in the parking lot. Then there's the mental fog. Stress can blur your focus and memory, making you feel older than your years. Ever blank on where you left your keys because you were stewing over a neighbor's snarky comment? That's stress, not just age, pulling the strings. And don't get me started on the physical toll. Tight shoulders, clenched jaw, that jittery feeling like you've had too much coffee. After 65, your body and mind don't shrug it off like they used to. Stress isn't a speed bump anymore. It's a crater, and it'll rattle you silly if you don't find a way to climb out. But here's where we flip the script. You're not doomed to just grit your teeth and bear it. Stress might be swinging harder, but you've got moves to swing back, and they're simpler than you'd think. Let's start with the first way to fight it. Move your body. Even if it's just a little. I know, sounds like the oldest trick in the book, right? But stick with me. It's a stress buster with teeth. When you move, walking, stretching, whatever, you kickstart endorphins, those natural happy pills that tell cortisol to take a long walk off a short pier. You don't need a gym pass or spandex. Diane started with a 10-minute shuffle around her backyard after her doc warned her stress was spiking her blood pressure. She rolled her eyes at first. I'm too old for this nonsense. But a week in, her shoulders weren't as knotted and she barking at her cat over nothing. Now she's up to 20 minutes, strolling her block, phoning, nodding at the neighbor's dogs. Studies back her up. A piece from the Journal of Aging Research says just 15 minutes of light movement a day can slash stress markers by 25% in older adults. It's not about running a marathon. It's about breaking that tension loop. Walking's pure gold, keeps your heart humming, loosens your joints, and gives your brain a timeout. Diane told me it's like I walk the worry right out of my skull. Give it a shot. Next time stress starts clawing, step outside, pace your hallway, whatever you've got. 5 minutes, 10. Just move. You'll feel it shift, like a weight sliding off. Second way to fight back. Breathe like you mean it. Yeah, I know, you're breathing right now, so what's the fuss? But after 65, stress can turn you into a shallow breather. Those quick, tight little gasps that keep you wound up like a spring. Deep, slow breathing flips the switch. It's like a hard reset for your nervous system. Meet Tom, a 66-year-old retired mechanic who used to stress over everything. Bills piling up, his son's shaky job, the furnace wheezing like it was on its last legs. His wife said he'd turned beet red just sorting the mail. Then a buddy tipped him off to a breathing trick. 4 seconds in through the nose, hold for 4, out for 6 through the mouth. He started doing it in his garage, radio humming, whenever he felt the heat creeping up. He told me, "I feel like a goof at first, but then it's like the knot in my gut just melts." Science has got his back. A study from the American Psychological Association says deep breathing can cut cortisol by up to 50% in minutes flat. It's like whispering to your brain, "Hey, we're cool, no crisis here," and your body buys it. Heart slows, shoulders drop. Tom's blood pressure's steadier, and he's not pacing the floors at midnight anymore. Try it. Next time you're stewing, say over a rude cashier, sit down, inhale slow for 4 counts. Hold it, then blow it out like you're fogging a mirror, 6 counts. Repeat 5 times. Sounds too simple, but it's a stealth weapon. Stress doesn't know what hit it. Third way, carve out your quiet and guard it like gold. After 65, life can feel like a loudspeaker on blast. Phone buzzing with texts, TV yammering about the end of the world, folks wanting your ear or your time. Stress feeds on that racket. It's like throwing gas on a fire. Pulling back, even just a sliver, chokes it out. Take Linda, 69, who used to pack her days with grandkid babysitting, church committees, and marathon calls with her chatty sister. She loved the bustle until it started loving her back too hard. After a health scare, her doc said her heart was racing from stress. She started saying no. Skipped a few meetings, turned her phone off for an hour a day, just sat with a cup of tea and watched the birds outside. She told me, "I didn't know how loud my life was until I turned it down. I feel human again." Studies say intentional quiet, real solitude, drops stress hormones and lifts your mood in older adults. It's not about turning into a recluse. It's about claiming your own airspace. Linda's not hiding from life. She's just picking what gets through the gate. Try it. Next time the world's piling on, shut the door, kill the noise, sit with yourself for 15 minutes. No plan, no to-do list, just you and the silence. It's like a spa day for your brain. Stress can't sneak in. Fourth way, lean on your people, but lean smart. After 65, connection's a lifeline. Loneliness can hit harder than stress some days, but you don't need a Rolodex full of names. Pick your A-team, the ones who fill your tank, not drain it dry. Meet Frank, 70, who used to stress himself silly keeping everyone happy, old work pals, pushy neighbors, cousins he hadn't seen in decades. He'd slog through hour-long calls or awkward coffee runs, feeling like a husk after. Then he wised up, cut it back to his daughter and his fishing buddy, the ones who don't suck the life out of him. He told me, "I don't waste my breath on drama anymore. I've got more in me now." Research from the University of Chicago says it's quality, not quantity, that counts in social ties after 65. Tight bonds cut stress, shaky ones heap it on. Frank's not isolated, he's intentional. Try this. Jot down your top 3 people, the ones who don't leave you ragged. Reach out to one today, skip the rest. Stress fades when you're with your real squad. Now, let's zoom out and chew on why this fight matters. After 65, stress isn't just a mood killer, it's a life stealer if you let it run loose. It's not just about feeling edgy, it's about what it does under the hood. That lingering cortisol can crank up your blood sugar, making diabetes a bigger threat. Your pancreas isn't as spry as it was. It can thin your bones too. Studies link chronic stress to osteoporosis in older adults, turning a stumble into a fracture. Even your gut takes a hit. Stress can mess with digestion, leaving you bloated or queasy when you're already dodging heartburn. Diane felt that after her crash, her stomach churned for days and she couldn't figure out why. And let's not skip the emotional toll. Stress can sap your joy, making every day feel gray. Ever snap at someone you love because you're wound too tight? That's stress, not you, calling the shots. Point is, after 65, your body and mind don't have the same shock absorbers. Stress isn't a fender bender anymore. It's a head-on collision if you don't swerve. But here's where it gets good. You've got more power than you think. These 4 moves aren't rocket science, but they're battle-tested. Moving your body shakes off the tension. Diane's proof, strolling her stress into the dust. Breathing deep resets your wiring. Tom's living it, calmer than he's been in years. Carving quiet gives you a breather. Linda's sipping tea and smiling again. Leaning smart on your people keeps you grounded. Frank's fishing and laughing, not fuming. You don't need a guru or a retreat, just a little willingness to try.